Get in the game with the college-branded Venmo debit card. Wreck your team with every tap and earn up to 5% cash back with Venmo Stash, a new rewards program from Venmo. No monthly fee, no minimum balance, just school pride and spending power. Get in the game and sign up for the Venmo debit card at venmo.com/collegecard. The Venmo MasterCard is issued by the Bancorp Bank N.A. Select schools available. Venmo Stash terms and exclusions apply at venmo.me/stash terms. Max $100 cash back per month.
For the News and Observer, I'm Dawn Vaughan, Capitol Bureau Chief and host of Under the Dome. I'm here today with our Washington, D.C. correspondent, Danielle Battaglia. On today's episode, we'll talk about two major House bills, a tale of two houses, one the U.S. House and one the North Carolina House, which had a lot of drama and now are going to have to work with the Senate. Our episode last week was that special one with the DMV commissioner, our transportation reporter, Richard Stradling interviewed. You should go back and listen if you missed it. So we have not talked yet about the state house and the budget bill, which got votes from Democratic leader Robert Reeves, several Democrats, a majority of Democrats, in fact. We'll get back to that later and what that means for coming up this week at the legislature. But we are going to start with the U.S. House. And they actually had a lot more hours of drama, a lot in their bill, as President Trump called it, big, beautiful bill. And like things happen here in Old North State, the House and the Senate have to work together or not, or at least attempt to. So where do things stand as here we are in this first week of June? The U.S. House passed its bill, and now there's the Senate to deal with.
Yeah, so the Senate comes back tonight. We're recording this on Monday, so they will be back, and then the Senate will start taking up the bill. It is called the One Big Beautiful Bill Act. I thought that was redundant, but apparently bills and acts are not the same thing and are widely different. So the name actually makes no sense whatsoever, but that's fine. Senate can do, or House can do what it wants to do. So they're going to take it up. There's a lot of things in this bill. So we're looking at Medicaid cuts, which you're going to hear from Republicans. These are not cuts. We are trying to root out people who are not working or are illegally getting Medicaid, but essentially it's going to hurt a lot of North Carolinians. You're going to look at SNAP benefits being lost. There's going to be cuts to energy. I am going to be looking at a potential cut to the tobacco industry and how that's going to affect North Carolina. There's so many things in this bill that could potentially cut or give cuts to North Carolina that are just like packed into this more than 1,000 page bill. And so the Senate's job now is to go through and look at what the House did. And they're already saying, we don't like this bill. There needs to be changes to it. And they're going to start going through their committee processes, editing, revising, figuring out over the next, I want to say 3 weeks. They want to get this done by July 4th. So Independence Day, they always take off the week for the holiday. They want to get it done and back to the House for House approvals. I think we're going to see a lot of discussion, especially with Thom Tillis. He's our senator from Hendersonville. He's going to be looking at Hendersonville. I always get him confused. Anyways, he's really looking at the energy cuts and how that's going to affect North Carolina. Senator Ted Budd, who's from Davie County, he's put out a statement this morning saying that he supports the bill, but he is looking at the Medicaid portion of it and wanting to make improvements there. And so I think the two of them are going to be looking at how this affects North Carolinians and the impacts there and how they can do the best by their constituents, but still pass Trump's plan. And this is a very big policy-driven bill by things that President Trump has promised in his campaign, and now he's trying to bring to fruition.
Let's take the clean energy tax breaks first. Governor Josh Stein gave a speech at this Emergent Issues Forum at NC State the last week, and he's worried about it. He's tied it to business, really, like wanting to make sure that these businesses are still coming and need to be able to depend on something. So when the U.S. House passes, I guess half a bill, or Congress passes half a bill, like how much happens in this like middle time? right? Before like the Senate decides what to do. Is it more like, here comes the train where the leadership is going to do what they want to do? Or is there, I guess how much are Tillis and Bud not only listening to North Carolina, but can really change anything if they want to?
I feel like, I know I'm going to get phone calls from both senators on this. I feel like our listeners are going to say that they aren't listening to the constituents back home very often. You see Reddit just forums constantly, or threads talking about it constantly, if they wish they had more interaction with our senators. But I will say, especially with Senator Tillis, because we have such a small margin of Republicans in the majority, basically, if he wants to hold up a bill, he can hold up a bill and make it not be able to pass. And so there's been things like that, especially with the energy cuts. He's really concerned. It's not that he is against what they're doing to the clean energy tax cuts, but he is concerned about giving businesses time to make sure that they're not harmed by them. And so he wants to give them a cushion to make sure that they can still function without these clean energy tax cuts that they were promised. And so I think we're going to be looking at things like that with him. Bud is very much more, you don't see him rabble rouse as much. And I'm not sure that's the right thing to say for Tillis either, but you don't see him getting in the mix of trying to stop bills, but he does work behind the scenes trying to make things happen. And he's also very much supportive of President Trump and his initiatives. And so I think you'll see less out of him, but I've already heard he's been in meetings with leadership trying to make changes to the Medicaid portions of the bill. So I think you're going to see a lot of behind the scenes work right now in the media, less on the floor. And then eventually when they all coalesce where they know they can get the bill passed, that's when you're going to see movement on the floor.
You'd mentioned SNAP. What's the impact there to the state?
So with the SNAP, right now the federal government's paying 100% of the SNAP benefits, and they pay 50% of the administrative costs. They want to make that 5% of the state to pay for it, which is like basically a $600 million bill that they're handing over to the state. It's huge. It's going to basically, I mean, they're going to have to figure out how to fund this and either cut SNAP, cut other programs elsewhere. So like people have said, it's like the entire North Carolina Public Safety Department salary. They've looked at how it is to teacher salaries and how many teachers it's going to be. It's like an astronomical number that they have to figure out if this goes forward, how to have that money in the state pay for it when they haven't had to pay for it before. So there's a lot of concern about like the risk to people who rely on this, both children in schools, but also families who need to get food on their tables. And this is also like nutritional foods. It's sometimes the most nutritional foods that they can get. And so people are very concerned about it. Josh Stein's spoken out about his concerns. And so, yeah, it's top of mind for a lot of people.
You'd also written about a woke tax, and Duke. Explain what that is and how that might change in the Senate. Yeah,
so the President Trump and House Republicans are looking at basically upping a tax that's already in effect for colleges and universities with a certain endowment. And it's based on the number of students they have, but they're adding a bunch of different things to the mix. So they're taking out foreign students from that number, but they're adding in other things like the royalties they get from projects that were funded by federal grants. They're also trying to think what all they're adding in. There's a bunch of different elements to this like calculation of how they're getting it. The only two schools right now at risk in North Carolina are Duke and Davidson College. Now there is one exemption in this bill, which is for religious colleges that can apply for a religious exemption. Duke says they don't believe they can get it. Davidson believes they can get it. Basically, there's three things that would give you that religious exemption. It's being founded after 1776, which both of them are. It's being connected to a religious organization. Both of them are. Duke was founded by the Methodists and the Quakers, and Davidson is Presbyterian. But then the third element is that your mission statement has to include religious principles still in it. Duke does not have it. Davidson does. And this is basically, you've seen like in the news constantly, Trump has gone after Harvard University for different things that he has found fault with. And this is kind of like they're basically saying that they're going, and they actually said this, that they're going after woke and elite colleges and universities in our community. And so the tax for Davidson and Duke would go from 1.4% on their endowment up to 7% taxes on their endowment. It's a huge number for them. And for some of the colleges like Harvard would be looking more at a 21% tax. So that is something that's being fought behind the scenes right now. And they're looking at different ways to like either accept the tax and figure out like how they could actually use the tax to benefit their students, or if they can fight against the tax altogether. So lots of discussions happening right now with lobbyists and various people behind the scenes.
All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we'll talk more about what's next in Congress and at the legislative building, and then our picks for headliner of the week. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking, maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
You're listening to Under the Dome. I'm Capitol Bureau Chief Dawn Vaughan, here with DC correspondent Danielle Battaglia. Before the break, we were talking about that acronym bill, which makes me think of Better Business Bureau, honestly, if you look at 3 Bs in a row. The federal version of a big bill. So what's going on this week now? I know we talked about what the Congress wanted to do, the House wanted to do with the bill that's now in the Senate's hands. But what's going on in the next couple of days, the rest of this week?
Yeah, so both are getting back into session. They've been on their Memorial Day recess. Anytime you see a patriotic holiday, expect them to be out of town and back with their constituents. So the Senate came back Monday. The House will come back Tuesday. I think a lot of it will be committee hearings, just trying to get, mostly for the Senate, getting their minds wrapped around what exactly they have to do with this one big, beautiful bill. And the House is moving on to other things. So we'll see what's on their agenda. But I know you have a busy week in, I almost said in Arlington, not in Arlington, in Raleigh with your house. Tell me what's going on there.
So what you were saying there about the House moving on to other things, the House and Senate here also took a break for Memorial Day week or weekend and then into the week. Everyone else has been at work other than that day off last Monday. But we're now at this point in June where, because of the continuing resolution, North Carolina doesn't have to have a budget by the end of the month, and signs point to probably not this time. But what will happen before the end of the month is if they're going to pass any laws. They've barely sent anything to Governor Stein's desk. And part of it is because the budget is the main work of the long session, and that the Senate had its version, the House had its version, and now they've got to haggle out what the final version of the bill will be. But in the meantime, they really haven't looked at each other's work very much from the other chambers. So that's what we're going to start to see this week. If you're a lawmaker listening on this Tuesday morning, you've got a bunch of committees. Also, there are a bunch of lawmakers with press conferences that they haven't told reporters what they're about yet. So if you're listening, once you put a legislative calendar, send out your news release that tells us what it's about if you want us to come, because it's just a busy time with a lot of stuff going on. Rules is meeting Tuesday morning, and we'll see how the week shapes up as far as the House and Senate taking up each other's things. And part of this is, if you want the House to do something, if you want the Senate to do something, where does the budget negotiating fit into all of this? So Senate Leader Berger, before they left for the week recess, said that it's really going to be at the staff point now in the area budget chairs working out the differences between the House and the Senate. But really a lot of big gap between them is on taxes and looking at the federal level. And if suddenly money isn't coming to North Carolina anymore, and suddenly North Carolina has to come up with ways to fund things, maybe the cuts. There were a lot of cuts in the House budget proposal with telling all state agencies to take 20% of your job vacancies and cut those. They have higher raises. They still have tax cuts, but different tax cuts than the Senate wants. And I feel like taxes are going to be really the big fight here this summer, along with, some sort of surprise. Last time it was casinos. So who knows if it's something else or if it's really just going to be down to taxes. And what we'll be watching is how Speaker Dustin Hall and Senate Leader Berger interact once it gets to the point of them being at the negotiating table. But we're a couple of weeks from that. So now we'll have kind of like a wide range of bills, sort of the variety pack of things passing that they'll send to Stein's desk. And we're also kind of watching for what his first veto will be. Both the Senate and the House, Democrats have voted with Republicans on multiple things. So we'll see how that pans out. So that's where we are in legislative land this week. Let's move on to our picks for headliner of the week. Danielle, who or what is your headliner?
I have a sad one. I went to college in Hickory, North Carolina, and hung out a lot in Mountain View, and which is like a community within Hickory, and loved Mountain View. I feel like it's got the most gorgeous views in Hickory. And there was a mass shooting this weekend, which is very unexpected in that part of Hickory, and just lifting up my heart and prayers to them. Not a lot of information has still come out about what happened, but I know I've talked to some people out there who just devastated that this has affected their community. Also heard it was the first mass shooting in Hickory, so I know we've gone through that in Raleigh. It's always very difficult to hear that news and wait for information to flow out. So I'm thinking about you all there.
My headliner is totally different. It's not about violence or big news, but it's about lights in downtown Raleigh. I believe we're recording this on Monday. I think within the next day or so, the city of Raleigh is in the part of this downtown revitalization. All the trees up and down Fayetteville Street between the Capitol building and Memorial Auditorium. I feel like there's dozens of them. I want to say 80 some trees are going to be lit up, and there'll be lights up all the time. Not as much where you see some lights at the holidays or lights out, individual restaurants and everything. So that should look pretty cool. That's one thing I'm looking forward to that Raleigh is doing. So
I love it.
All right, we are about out of time. Thank you for listening. I'm Dawn Vaughan with Danielle Battaglia, producer Laura Brache. We'll talk to you next time.
For more from our politics team, subscribe to the News and Observer at newsobserver.com/subscribe. Sign up for our political newsletter, also called Under the Dome, at newsobserver.com/newsletters. Thanks for listening.